Spencer walked into the small convenience store, his sharp eyes immediately scanning the space. The hum of the freezer and the faint scent of floor cleaner filled the air. He was here to buy condoms, but something unusual caught his attention. The store clerk, a wiry man in his late 20s, was engrossed in his phone, a sly grin on his face. Spencer's curiosity piqued. He stepped closer, pretending to browse, and glimpsed the screen. His chest tightened. The photo on the clerk's phone was of his wife, Eliana, wearing nothing but lacy stockings. For a moment, Spencer froze, the betrayal sharp as a blade. But his instincts kicked in. Confrontation could wait. Instead, he played it cool, strolling to the counter. "Hey, which of these are the best?" he asked, holding up a box of condoms. The clerk fumbled, quickly locking his phone. They're all pretty good," he stammered, his nervousness thinly veiled. Spencer nodded, his face unreadable. "Thanks." He then called out loudly, "Eliana, can you come in here?" Moments later, Eliana entered, her smile warm and unassuming. Spencer's tone was casual, even playful, as he said, "I was thinking, we should get these. And oh, by the way," he added, loud enough for the clerk to hear, "I'll be heading out of town next week. Big business deal. Could bring in at least $10 million if it all goes well." He reached into his wallet and handed her a sleek black card. "Use this to help your brother clear his mortgage. Should be around $3 million, right?" The clerk's eyes widened, his greed unmistakable. Spencer noted the reaction but said nothing. This wasn't just a conversation. It was the opening move of a carefully laid trap. 7 days later, Spencer had returned home from a long business trip, exhausted but eager to see his family. Yet, something felt off. His slippers, the ones he always wore, seemed too small. "These aren't my size," he said, holding one up. "They are," Eliana replied smoothly, her face calm. "They're still size 44, just a new design that fits tighter." Her explanation didn't sit right. Later that evening, Spencer checked the label. Size 43. His unease deepened. The next day, while taking out the trash, he found a takeout receipt for a meal Eliana had claimed to have cooked. Then, he discovered lacy stockings in the garbage, stockings he'd never seen her wear. The pieces didn't add up. Determined, Spencer installed hidden cameras around the house. What he uncovered shattered him. Eliana was cheating. And not with some powerful rival. Her lover was the store clerk. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt. It was the pettiness of it. She'd thrown away the 10-year marriage for someone with a fraction of Spencer's success. But instead of confronting her in rage, Spencer decided on something better. The next day, Spencer met Avila, a stunning woman with a confident demeanor. He offered her a $1 million fee to play a role in his scheme. "You want me to do what?" Avila asked, raising an eyebrow. "Just help me put on a show," Spencer replied calmly. Avila smirked. "This sounds messy." "It's not illegal, I promise," he reassured her. He led her to a hidden room in his house. Inside, she saw neatly organized evidence, photos, receipts, and camera footage. It was enough to destroy Eliana's reputation and ensure she left the marriage with nothing. "Wow," Avila said, impressed. "You thought this through." "I have," Spencer said grimly. "She betrayed me, and I don't take betrayal lightly. But I don't want revenge for revenge's sake. I want her to see the life she threw away." Avila leaned back, intrigued. "All right, I'm in." As Spencer and Eliana left the convenience store, the clerk watched them with barely concealed envy. He had no idea what was coming. Spencer's trap was set, and all the pieces were falling into place. This wasn't just about exposing the affair. It was about reclaiming control. And when it was over, Eliana would realize the cost of her betrayal, but by then, it would be too late. Avila leaned against the polished wooden table in Spencer's study, her arms crossed as she processed everything he had just revealed. The dim lighting of the room, combined with the weight of the truth, gave the atmosphere a heavy intensity. Spencer, sitting across from her, stared at the evidence sprawled on the table, a mix of photos, bank statements, and security footage. His expression was calm, yet his eyes burned with determination. So, let me get this straight, Avila began, her voice slow and deliberate. Not only has Eliana been unfaithful, but she's also plotting to kill you, for money. Spencer nodded, his jaw tightening. She and her lover are after my wealth. I have no living family. If I'm gone, they inherit everything, including custody of my daughter. I can't let that happen. Avila shook her head, a mix of disbelief and anger in her expression. And this Clark, her lover. He's not just a cheater. He's a gambler, a thief, and a murderer by consequence, Spencer interrupted. His tone was icy. He stole from his own mother's medical funds, leading to her death. He sold the family home, leaving his father to die homeless. He's destroyed everything he's touched, and now he's after my family and my money. Avila exhaled sharply, pacing the room. I get why you want to expose them. But your plan, it's risky. You're talking about orchestrating a crime, a home invasion. If this goes south, you could lose everything. Spencer's gaze softened, and he leaned forward. Avila, I've thought of every angle. I know my wife's family. The greed controls them, but their obsession with appearances is even stronger. When they realize Eliana's betrayal, they'll turn on her. She won't have a choice but to cooperate. And as for her lover, he said with a grim smile, his past actions will make him an easy suspect once the plan is in motion. Avila frowned, still skeptical. But why bring me into this? You don't need me to carry this out. You already have the evidence. Spencer met her gaze, his tone quiet but firm. Because I need someone I can trust to play a key role in making this work. Your involvement makes it believable. You're the wild card they won't see coming. Her brow furrowed, and she tilted her head. And what if it doesn't work? What if they turn on you instead? Spencer's face darkened. He stood, walking to the window where the soft glow of the African sunset illuminated his silhouette. Avila, he began, his voice low, this isn't just about revenge. It's about my daughter. She's only 6. If Eliana gets custody, my little girl will be dragged into their mess. I can't let her grow up in that kind of life. Not after everything I've built for her. There was a long silence as Avila processed his words. Finally, she spoke. And what do I get out of this? Spencer turned back to her, his eyes unwavering. $1 million, as promised. But more than that, your son gets the medical treatment he needs. I've already spoken to the best doctors in the region. It's all arranged, but only if you help me. Avila's eyes widened. She hadn't expected him to bring up her son. How do you even know about that? I did my homework, Spencer said simply. I know you're doing everything you can to save him. And I know this money could change everything for you. I'm offering you a way out. A way to secure his future. Avila stared at him, her emotions a whirlwind. She hated the idea of being part of something so dangerous, yet she couldn't ignore the desperation she felt for her son's survival. Finally, she sighed, her shoulders slumping. All right, I'll do it, but if this backfires, it won't, Spencer said firmly. I've made sure of it. As the last rays of sunlight faded, casting the room in shadows, Spencer and Avila began to discuss the final details of the plan. Each step had to be perfect. There was no room for error. The trap was set. All that was left now was for Eliana and her lover to take the bait. Avila adjusted her disguise, a plain maid's uniform that made her blend in seamlessly with the other staff. She stood near the building's security station, her heart racing but her face calm. On the small monitor, the security footage showed Eliana's lover scaling the villa's tall fence before slipping into the house. Avila tapped the security guard on the shoulder, her voice trembling just enough to sound convincing. Excuse me, sir, she said urgently, pointing to the screen. There's a robbery happening right now in Villa Look. The guard's eyes widened as he focused on the footage. Stay here, he ordered, grabbing his walkie-talkie. I'll handle this. Avila nodded, stepping aside as he called for backup. She quickly sent a text to Spencer. He's inside. Everything's in place. Asterisk. Meanwhile, Spencer was sitting in a cab just a few blocks away, his calm demeanor hiding the storm within him. His plan was unfolding perfectly. He had never boarded his flight, knowing the show would begin as soon as Eliana thought he was gone. Now, it was time for the next move. Eliana and her lover sat on the couch, the air thick with the scent of expensive candles and deceit. The man, whose name was Biko, lounged casually, a smug grin on his face as he counted the possibilities of what he could do with $300,000. "I'm telling you," he said, his voice brimming with overconfidence, "I can double that money in a week. No more small-time deals. We'll own the city." Eliana smiled nervously, but the sound of her phone ringing broke the moment. She glanced at the caller ID, Spencer. Her stomach churned. She picked up, trying to sound casual. "Hello, I'm downstairs," Spencer said, his voice sharp. "The project got cancelled, and I'm back earlier than expected." Eliana froze. "What? You're back?" "Yes," he said simply. "Open the door." Panic washed over her. She turned to Biko, her voice trembling. "You need to leave, now." Biko frowned, sensing the tension. "What's going on?" "It's Spencer," she hissed. "He's downstairs. You need to go. Take the back window." Biko hesitated, grabbing a kitchen knife. "Are you insane?" "Just go." Spencer stood by the gate, phone in hand. He heard the desperation in Eliana's voice and smirked. "You're not fooling anyone, Eliana," he said coldly. "I know about you and your lover. I've seen everything." There was a pause on the other end, then her tone shifted. "You're crazy," she spat. "I don't know what you're talking about. If you're trying to accuse me of something, you'd better think twice. And you know what? Fine. Let's get a divorce. But you'll split everything, half and half." Spencer clenched his jaw, his patience snapping. He stormed up the stairs, his footsteps heavy with purpose. Eliana was still trying to push Biko toward the window when the door burst open. Spencer stood in the doorway, his expression dark and unyielding. "So this is the man you threw away 10 years of marriage for?" Spencer said, his voice dripping with disdain. Biko stepped forward, brandishing the knife, but his bravado faltered under Spencer's glare. "Stay back, or what?" Spencer asked coolly, taking a step closer. Before Biko could respond, his grip on the knife slipped, and it clattered to the floor. In his rush to escape, he tripped over the edge of the window frame, landing awkwardly on the balcony outside. Spencer turned to Eliana, his voice low and controlled. "Did you really think I'd confront you without evidence?" Eliana's confidence cracked, her defiance replaced by fear. "Spencer, listen, save it," he snapped, cutting her off. "Everything you've done, every lie you've told, it's all recorded. You and your pathetic lover will face the consequences." As Spencer spoke, footsteps echoed down the hallway. The security guard arrived with 2 officers, their faces stern as they entered the room. "There he is," Avila said, stepping in behind them and pointing at Biko, who was still on the balcony. "That's the man who broke in." The officers moved quickly, apprehending Biko while Eliana stood frozen, her world unraveling. Spencer turned to Avila, nodding subtly in appreciation. The plan was far from over, but the first domino had fallen. Now, it was time to finish what he started. The courtyard buzzed with activity as the police secured the area and collected evidence. Avila stayed nearby, observing the chaos with a neutral expression. Spencer leaned against a pillar, his arms crossed, watching as Eliana's fabricated world collapsed around her. Inside the villa, Eliana's parents sat in stunned silence, their faces a mix of confusion and shame. Eliana, now pale and trembling, clutched a tissue as though it could somehow protect her from the storm that was Spencer's revenge. Spencer finally broke the silence. "Your daughter has some explaining to do," he said coldly, his gaze fixed on Eliana's father. "She's been funneling my money to that man, a known criminal. And now, thanks to her, $3 million is gone, and she's dragged our family name through the mud." Eliana's mother gasped, clutching her chest. Eliana, is this true? Eliana shook her head vigorously, tears streaming down her face. Mama, no. That man, he tricked me. He forced me. I didn't know he was like this. Her father's voice boomed, cutting through her cries. Don't lie, Eliana. If there's any truth to what Spencer is saying, you've ruined yourself and this family. Speak now or face the consequences. Eliana broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I made mistakes, she stammered. But I swear I didn't know he would do this. He took advantage of me. Spencer's face remained impassive. Enough of the crocodile tears. You've already signed the agreement to leave with nothing. The police are here now, and they'll take it from here. The police questioned the security guard, who recounted the break-in and handed over the knife Biko had dropped. Avila provided additional details, showing them footage of Biko climbing the fence and entering the villa. One officer turned to Spencer. Do you recognize this man? Spencer nodded. I've seen him before. He works at a convenience store near here. He's always had a shady reputation, and now it's clear why. The officer scribbled notes before addressing the team. Issue an alert for this man. We'll get statements from everyone inside. As the police prepared to leave, Eliana was asked to give her official statement. Her voice shook as she repeated Spencer's narrative, claiming she was a victim of robbery and assault. Spencer watched her closely, knowing that this was the final nail in her lover's coffin. By affirming the story and painting herself as a victim, Eliana unwittingly made it impossible for Biko to escape the law. His fate was sealed, and there would be no way for him to refute the charges without implicating himself further. Avila, standing silently in the background, caught Spencer's eye. He gave her a small, almost imperceptible nod. The plan had worked perfectly. As the police left with their leads, Spencer turned to Eliana's parents. I'll give you time to process this, he said. But don't expect me to clean up her mess anymore. My priority is my daughter's future, and she deserves better than this. With that, he walked out, Avila following close behind. Once outside, Avila spoke in a low voice. That was ruthless. Are you satisfied now? Spencer paused, looking up at the moonlit sky. This is just the beginning, he replied. I'll make sure neither of them can ruin anyone else's life again. Avila said nothing, but as she glanced at Spencer's determined expression, she couldn't help but wonder what his next move would be. As the courtroom emptied after the scumbag's conviction, Spencer stood silently at the back, his face unreadable. Avila approached him cautiously, her voice barely above a whisper. It's over now. You've won. Spencer shook his head slowly. This was never about winning, he said. It was about justice, and protecting my daughter's future. With the scumbag facing the death penalty and Eliana's deceit exposed, Spencer moved to secure his life and his daughter's future. He sent the finalized divorce papers to Eliana, ensuring she left with nothing but her personal belongings. When Eliana received the papers, her anger boiled over. This isn't fair, she screamed over the phone, trying to reach Spencer. You can't just erase everything we built together. Spencer's voice was cold and unwavering. We didn't build anything, Eliana. I built everything while you tore it apart. The divorce terms are clear. If you try to fight them, your lies will land you in prison alongside your lover. Realizing she had no options left, Eliana signed the papers. Her parents, still reeling from the disgrace, could do little to help her. The family fell into disarray, and the once proud image Eliana had worked so hard to maintain was forever tarnished. Meanwhile, Spencer took legal action to reclaim all the properties and assets he had once gifted to Eliana's family. Her brother, who had lived in a house Spencer paid for, was forced to sell it and move elsewhere. The family's greed and betrayal had come full circle, leaving them with nothing. As Spencer's plans unfolded to their final stages, Avila began to question the morality of her involvement. Was it worth it? She asked one evening as they sat on the veranda of Spencer's new home. Spencer stared out at the horizon, watching his daughter play in the garden. I don't know, he admitted, but I couldn't let my daughter grow up in a house built on lies. She deserves better. Avila nodded but remained thoughtful. Revenge can be a heavy burden. Make sure you don't lose yourself in it. Spencer smiled faintly. I'm done with revenge. Now it's about rebuilding. For her. As time passed, the dust settled. Spencer focused on his daughter, ensuring she grew up in a loving and stable environment. He also made efforts to support initiatives that helped single parents and victims of domestic betrayal rebuild their lives. For Eliana, life was a harsh teacher. Left with nothing and estranged from her family, she struggled to find her footing. Her once privileged life served as a reminder of the consequences of greed and deceit. The story ended not with a grand celebration but with quiet resolve. Trust is fragile. Betrayal, whether in marriage or friendships, can destroy even the strongest bonds. Spencer learned to focus on what truly mattered, his daughter's happiness, and found peace in moving forward. Do you think Spencer did the right thing? Drop your opinion in the comment section. I will be glad to read it. Thank you so much for watching. Please support this channel by subscribing, liking this story, and sharing it with your loved ones and family. Goodbye and God bless you.